All right, let's get going. Hello and welcome to EPIC's Career Series event. We're so excited that you're here tonight. My name is Marguerite Hubert. Excuse me. I am EPIC's Canvas Communications Manager, and tonight we have David Foote. We'll be chatting about his experience at Harris and how he got to where he is today in his current role. But first, I want to give a brief overview of EPIC and then how the event is going to go tonight. So first, if you're not familiar with EPIC, we're the Energy Policy Institute at the University of Chicago. We act as an interdisciplinary hub for energy and environmental research all across the university. So we combine the insights of economists, policy analysts, and business experts with the technical expertise of engineers and scientists. Our faculty affiliates work together to bring robust cross-cutting research to the forefront of the global energy debate. So tonight, we're going to spend about 30 minutes in a moderated Q&A led by myself, and then I will spend about 30 minutes with a Q&A with the audience. So if you're listening and you're thinking of questions along the way, jot those down, and then we will get to them in the second half of this event. So if you have any technical issues, you can go ahead and use that Q&A box. The chat box has been disabled. So if you'd like to ask a question, we'll have you raise your hand, and then I will unmute you. I'll have you accept the unmute, and then you can say your name and what year you are in school, and then I will mute you after your question has been asked. So basically that's our overview of logistics for tonight, and we will dive right in. So David, would you like to give a quick overview of yourself, and then we will get started?
All right, sounds good. My name's Dave Foote. I studied computational, and I was in the CAP program over at Harris, and had my RA-ship at EPIC, and got interested in public power and just kind of the world of energy. And today I work in a FTR trading office as a Power Market Analyst for LS Power. I'm based in the city of Baltimore.
Great. All right, so let's start first a little bit about what your current job is, and then we'll go backwards and see how you got there. So can you first explain a little bit about LS Power and what it is that they do and what you do?
Yeah, so LS Power is a like large energy firm. They mainly invest in companies like the one or offices like the one I work for. We are LS Power, but this office was a startup, started in like 2013, that was bought out and is largely autonomous. So it's still really a startup culture. We still really do things our own way. They're trying to integrate some of what we do into like their FTR trading in general. But for the most part, like we don't interact with the kind of corporate side of this, and we just, share one big office and work like a startup.
That's a very cool environment. Can you describe more about what your typical day looks like? What are your main responsibilities? More like that. I'm assuming you're remote as well, so I know this is obviously a little different than what it might be like in the office, but can you just walk us through that?
Yeah, so day to day, I actually am showing up to the office, but I'm really the only person who shows up to the office. There's 3 of us total. There's a lot of ongoing projects, and actually today there was an auction. So days like today, we all show up at the office, and that's like our kind of hard to mitigate that risk. We have to all be there and talk to each other around the auctions. So most of what we do is prepare for these auctions. We do a lot of research. We try and model the grid as best we can. So not just like the physical aspects of it, which are like public domain knowledge, and you can kind of set that up, but there's a really cool package in Julia to do that. There's like, it's fairly simple to do that, but like to kind of match the economics to it and kind of recreate the like the bids are public data, but they're anonymized. So there's a lot of work that has to be done to kind of get to a point where you can understand the economics behind this power flow and where they're getting it, and how, say, like RGGI spreading or coming to Pennsylvania is going to affect coal plants there and how that's going to affect power flow, and like where the other cheap bids are coming from. And so it's just a lot of work. There's a lot of dimensions to the issue of finding the optimal power flow. And it's not necessarily we're trying to find what we think would be the best way, but we're trying to recreate what they're doing. So it's pretty dynamic but fun modeling projects. And then I do some like basic reporting type of stuff, like as weekly duties.
There's always paperwork. Nothing's on paper, but
Right.
all right. So you mentioned there's two other people in your office. Can you explain a little bit more about the organizational structure and how your teams are set up, and like who are the people you work with on a day-to-day basis?
Oh yeah, sure. So I work with Jason and Vita. Were the founders of this company before it was they sold to LS Power. And Vita is now the vice president of FTR trading in the organization. So she's really like she's ultimately in charge of the office and what we do from like a HR standpoint. And she has there are both quants for like based in Chicago for Constellation actually, and Exelon in the Exelon Chicago office. And he has more of a computer science background. She has more of a finance background. And they split off like around 2011 and came here alone. So they have a boss who I also report to technically, but I really don't interact with him very often. Most of what I do is with Jason and Vita in Baltimore.
That's a nice small team then. So that's great that you get to interact with everybody and see them face to face, which is really amazing right now. So what do you like best about working there, and what have you found to be the most challenging part?
Yeah, I really like the flexibility and just like the broad scope of how much data there is out there that really could affect what we're trying to do. And you could always have a little extra time, add a little bit to the model, or improve on something, refine something. So there's always like positive work to be doing. It's not like a corporate entity sometimes where it's not clear if what you're doing is helping. Like you're there running the code with them and working on it and pushing things up, and people are helping you with stuff, and they're pushing things to you, and you're working on their code. So it's pretty fun, pretty dynamic place to work. It can be a struggle sometimes. I don't really have a finance background, so some of how we like monetize the information we're getting is like interesting to me, but I'm still learning that. So it's yeah.
Great. So can you walk us through then what your path was to LS Power? Were you familiar with them beforehand? Did you know someone? Did you just randomly apply? How did you end up where you are?
Yeah, so like I said, I was a CAP student, and I worked at Epic, and went to meetings like this, and kind of caught the bug and got really interested in public energy and like power flow and the grid and all that. And really just fired off Python and like public energy into LinkedIn and applied to a bunch of jobs. And I honestly focus a lot of RTOs and ISOs and organizations like that. And that's kind of where I first heard about FTRs. And it certainly is, if you ultimately want to work at an organization like that, they do a lot of the work behind like making sure the grid's reliable and making sure the like a deregulated system is operating fairly, and there's nobody cheating the system, and no kind of Enron thing happening. ERCOT's very busy in Texas right now, type of stuff. So this is really good experience. This is the type of financial market people will play a foul in if you're a big generator or a big utility. And the rules are weak. There's a lot you can do to leverage. Like we're a pretty small office, but these markets tend to be involved in these scandals. So keep an eye out. And in Texas, and they call them CRRs there.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's backtrack a little bit to your time at Harris, which wasn't too long ago. Did you at that time know what you wanted to do after graduation? Is this route what you were always interested in, or did you just kind of end up here after graduation?
I got interested probably before I applied to Epic. I was definitely interested, but my undergraduate degree is in international relations and world politics. And so I kind of thought I would be doing something like that. When I got to Harris, I just really fell in love with kind of what was available as far as coursework and programs, and RA-ships and things like that for energy work. And it just so happened that I liked the position I got at Epic and went ahead with that. So there was some chance to it. I definitely didn't, in 2018, wasn't thinking about doing this for a career. So some chance to it.
Okay. And what made you decide to go back to graduate school? Was there just what spurred the decision?
Yeah, I was working for the state of California, and where I was, it was environmental related. It was for the Department of Food and Agriculture. We were limiting the spread of pest insects, and I just kind of got to a point where to get promoted, I would need a science degree, or I'd have to make some lateral change and start doing work that I hadn't really been doing. We were collecting data and setting up quarantines and things like that. And I thought, if I was going to change careers, it'd probably be best to like get a handle on it and build some skills that I think would be useful for jobs that I wanted. So I had the policy background and the interest in policy, and I saw that the CAP program was available and a good way to pick up some extra skills.
Great. So then building on that, how did you find that your time at Harris helped you? What did you like walk away with and learn, and still kind of fresh for you? So do you have any overarching thoughts about how that helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I had about zero programming experience before I came to Harris. I now spend about 50% of my time like programming and writing code. So I definitely wouldn't be here without that. And like everything in like Ann Rogers' class comes up all the time, but also like databases, stuff like that. And so there's like a very technical side of this, but I'd also say like the energy econ class, program evaluation with Fiona Burlig was a great experience and a great introduction to just like how broad the world of energy really is and how much research is going on. And if you can fall down the rabbit hole in a lot of different places if you got really interested in kind of something they were studying in that class. So yeah, I'd say a large portion of my Harris programming kind of pushed me to this into this field or helped me out. Yeah.
Awesome. So speaking of some of those classes that you were talking about, do you have any advice for any students who happen to be in Harris or thinking of applying to Harris, and advice for courses to take or ones that stood out as your favorites?
Oh yeah, energy economics it's taught in the spring. That's a very interesting class. The professor runs or my professor when the class was on helped run a energy fund basically. So he had a lot of experience kind of on the finance side, and was really like one of the first people to like really explain how this grid system works and some of like the real constraints that we have to deal with and like the actual struggle it is to like keep lights on all the time throughout. So it was very interesting. It was a very good class. He was helpful in my job search. I would say if you can, if you're not in CAP, try and take some data work classes and build some programming. Even at my company, like my boss, the vice president Vita, is not really a programmer, but she writes a lot of her own code just because she wants to see something and wherever you want to fit in, if you can pull data down from the internet or pull data down from wherever, put it in a database, work with it, and do some analysis on it, that's going to be helpful to your career. So, yeah.
All right. And then were you involved in anything at Harris or outside of Harris during that time that helped add to your skills or interest in this energy role?
I was RAing at Epic, so that was the main experience that added to my wanting to be a part of this or take this role on. I worked for Eyal Frank. We mainly did environmental research, which was a lot more related to what I had been doing in my career beforehand. And it was a great experience. I got a lot of, wrote a lot of Python code for him, got a lot better at writing Python code during that experience. And it was very interesting. And yeah, so. But also it was like these events kind of the Epic hosts that I wouldn't have really known about if I wasn't working at Epic that kind of started me on the path into public power. So.
Yeah, so David was a DRW fellow with us. Those are available. Those fellowships are available to Harris students. So you were working with you were with Eyal. Was there anything else that you learned from that fellowship, and how did that help you get to those extra skills? Were those helpful to your current path or more of your previous path?
No, those skills were like continue to be helpful. There's a lot of like free form research things where it'd be really nice to come up with an answer, but nobody really knows how direct of an answer. So working for Eyal, there are a lot of projects in like the early stages where I'm just calling up government offices and seeing what data we can get and how we can get it and what kind of resolution they can get it in, and seeing if we can make a national data set out of 50 different state data sets and things like that. And that never goes away. So like now we have, there's less states part of PJM, which is the market I'm really studying, but they all have different ways they list their dockets and different ways they make decisions and different things that the state's allowed to make decisions on, and we have to follow all that. And so I'm on the phone. It's a lot of that freeform research and just trying to find out how I can organize Ohio's data set to like mix with all the other data we have, and yeah, things like that.
Were there any other internships or fellowships that you did either during undergrad or graduate school that you found helpful or not helpful?
No, not really.
Right. And then while at Harris, did you have a mentor or advisor that you worked with and helped you kind of plot out what you were hoping to do after graduation?
No, Eyal talked to me about stuff like that. So he was a good force and all that. And the program director at CAP, like the CAP program director, was Alex. And then now it's a team. Katie and Ali, they're they're very helpful in all this. So yeah.
Okay, and then so some people on this call may be getting ready to graduate and start applying for positions if they haven't done so already. Do you have any advice for applying for jobs and interviewing in this very strange time? If you had to do anything that was mostly virtual, or if you ever got to do any in-person interviews, can you talk a little bit about what that experience has been like?
Yeah, it's been pretty strange. I've had a lot of different interview experiences, but at this organization, I was pretty lucky that Jason and Vita feel like the whole screen is a distraction, and they just wanted to be on the phone for all 3 interviews. So we saw each other for the first time, like when I was signing my paperwork and getting hired. It was all over the phone. It was very like low pressure. These are technical interviews, or those were for me, and the related, like the public power interviews tend to be. That does bring up, if you are interested in this, even if you're not coming from like a programming side, like linear algebra comes up again and again and is helpful. It's common for like the ISO to use linear algebra to explain how they think of a problem. So that's another good class, and it comes up in the interviews.
Sounds like something fun to talk about on the phone with someone, not in person.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make sure you copy everything down right.
Okay. Any other job seeking advice? It seems things have trended a little differently since last year. So I don't know, how things have changed now, but do you have any advice for those job seekers out there?
Yeah, I would definitely say market your skills, or make sure your marketing skills that you developed here, that you had before you got here. A lot of places, like a lot of opportunities, might look at like some experiences as not necessarily relevant, but when they see the kind of the skills behind that, they really need those skills. It's been about a year since anyone's really hired at a high level, or like a lot of these organizations have been able to hire at a high level. So if they know that you can help them today, and that you're interested, they'll train you on some of the softer stuff. Yeah, market your skills, and be flexible. I would say it certainly helped me to like not care about moving to Baltimore, but
Which is very opposite of everything where now everything's like you can live anywhere. And you got to head out to Baltimore. All right, then let's look a little forward now. Did you envision that your career path would be this way? And how do you think this position here at Alice Power is going to help you get to wherever 5-10 years down the road?
Yeah, I did not really see myself in this type of role, definitely in the very beginning. So like coming to school and for policy, I didn't really see myself in a finance company, and everything was done. But this is still very, very relevant to just like the public policy issue of how do we have a fair priced market for public or power. And the 5 to 10 years from now, I will probably still be in this organization. Certainly, I have the opportunity to present trading opportunities to my bosses, and as that grows, a career trading FTRs could be in the future. But certainly, like from this marketing side, I think ultimately I'd want to work back at an RTO. Just trying to there's some interesting jobs around the FTR market where it's kind of like a detective looking for foul play in other markets that people are covering themselves in this market. So it's something it would have been really hard to explain to me a year ago that now I feel like fairly and like would be extremely interesting. And so like it's a broad world, and stay open-minded, and yeah, that'd be it.
Okay, and last but not least, what is your dream job? You can't say this one.
Okay, let's say like if there is some big initiative to like increase these tariffs, there's going to be like some market design questions that people might make, new RTOs, things like that. That would be a very interesting time to be a part of an RTO is like in its inception, and trying to like create market rules that would lead to the most efficient, fairest market, you think. So that would be probably a dream job. Yeah.
Okay, then let's open up the floor to audience questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. I will unmute you and then ask you to accept that unmute, and then you can speak, ask your question, and then I will mute you after that. And please remember to say your name and what year in school you are. If you're in a specific program, that'd be great too. And then we can get going. I'll give you guys a And while we wait for you guys to warm up and get ready with your questions, I'll keep talking with Dave, and we'll talk a little bit about some other items, and then we can pause whenever I see someone raise their hand. All right, so starting a new job is like always really scary. And what surprised you the most about this position or the company in general? What surprised you?
Probably the office. Like on the company website, it's their New York office, and it's this big corporate like energy finance company, and that's kind of what I was expecting. And my boss did say like, don't dress up or anything the first day. So like I wore a collared shirt and some slacks, and like thought I wasn't too dressed up, and she was wearing like a leather jacket and a t-shirt, and so it's definitely like a laid back kind of vibe, and it's like, I don't know, their boss like calls the office a frat house. It's a little like messy in there. It's just like a big whiteboard and a bunch of computers, and it's interesting. It's a lot more like what I was doing at school and working on a big group project like that than what I thought work would be like. So that was a big surprise.
And how much, so you said you were working for the state of California before this, how much experience did you have out in the workforce before coming back to grad school?
I had, as far as like relevant experience to this job, I had zero experience.
Oh, just post grad or post undergrad, how much time was there in between?
Yeah, okay. I graduated in 14, so good 6 years. 7
All
years.
right, so it's not like you'd never been in the workforce before. So
I worked. It's not super well. I worked for a financial advisor, and then I worked for the state of California. Yeah.
all right. And kind of on the surprised question, what do you wish you had known when you started out, either in this role or in Harris, or what do you wish you had known before just getting started?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like specific things about how PJM works that I wish I knew, because they're just hard lessons to learn. Although I don't know, I think I was as prepared as I could have been. It's not like, there's a lot of niches in this industry, and there's not like a lot of from a policy standpoint, like you can only get so specific because everyone's doing things slightly different ways, and these things change. So I don't know, nothing really. I felt good.
Right. We have a very shy audience tonight. Again, if you don't want to talk, you can put your Q&A in the Q&A box. Oh, we have a raised hand. Sweet. All right. Hi, Nicholas. Let me allow you to talk.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. David, thank you for taking the time to talk about your experience at Ellis Power. I'm a third year in the college studying economics, and I guess I was just hoping if you could provide a little bit kind of more explanation of what your role, or particularly I guess FTR's role is in the PJM power market, like more so what instruments, securities, or contracts is your organization trading? And I guess I'm just curious to learn about how like those wholesale power markets operate, in comparison to like ones that don't have that kind of competition.
Yeah. Okay. So an FTR is a financial transmission right. It is basically a a financial product, they auction off periodically for periods in the future, and yeah, so it's basically a way of spreading congestion costs out back to people who have paid too much for power, generally utilities, energy delivery side, distribution customers. But it is a free market, so like my office participates as just profiteers, I guess, and we're basically looking for paths within the system where the price of power will be higher on one side than the other, and as a way of allocating congestion costs back to people who are charged too much. If the price of power is higher on one side of a path, and these paths are directional, you will get the difference between the local marginal price on one side of the path and the other side of the path, or you'll get a share of that paid out based on how much of that path you've bought versus how much other people have bid on that path, and technically for that time and market, how much you own of that path.
Does that answer your question, Nicholas, or do you have any follow-up?
Yeah, I think that provides more clarity. I guess one follow-up would just be, so it sounds very similar to a kind of market making function in just like non-power markets, if I understand that correctly, but with obviously added layers of complexity in terms of kind of how much profit you take. I guess my question is that like a correct understanding?
I'm sorry, you cut out there at the end of what you were saying.
Apologies. Yeah, I guess so. Just to kind of ask one more clarification. So based on what you described, would it be correct to say that your role is similar to that of a market maker in kind of, let's say, like an equity market in terms of like getting a cut of the spread on a bid-ask spread?
Well, no. So the RTO would be the market maker, and well, see, my finance background is very weak, so I think I know what you're saying, and yeah, to some extent we are. You could. I wouldn't call it making a market though, because these are like the universe of paths you can bid on is already defined. Like this was set up by the RTO and presented to us, and then we are researching like what power flow is actually going to be, and which one of these paths is going to have a different price of power on one side than the other. So not so much making the market, but I mean, yes and no. Like if there was no, some of these paths aren't going to get bid on, so we could choose to buy on them. We'd essentially be making a market for them, and it might be for a reason where we think they're not valuable now, but someone's going to want them when, like the outages. We think that the outages in the model might not be the real outages when it comes down to like 2023. So you could create a market out of just like per se by buying something that nobody else was buying, and like and shorting it really big, or just intending to sell it back, I guess, for a higher price. Not sure.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Nicholas. We do have 2 questions in the Q&A box. We'll get to the first one. I'm just going to read it, and then Dave, you can answer it. So you mentioned that the industry has different niches. Can you talk about a few of those? Do they have different needs in terms of skills or classes? How could people learn more about them?
Yeah, so like I said, there's a lot of different markets run by an RTO, FTRs and ARRs, and congestion revenue stuff is just a small part of it. And even within like that world, there are like a large entity like Exelon takes a more, like finance, like what you would learn in a finance class point of view on all this, and has like a really, because they own so many things, they kind of just view this whole market as a cost, and they just make sure they're not gonna, when if something like a 90-degree day in April happens, or if you're in Texas, they didn't have this market really set up, but that would be more of like a typical economic background they'd be looking for. At those organizations, if you want to work for a large power generator or a large utility, that's kind of the point of view they take. And then there's a lot I could say. I guess it depends on what you want to do. Yeah.
All right, we'll go with it depends. All right, we have 2 more in the Q&A box. So next one, what did you do between undergrad and grad school? You said that it's not really relevant for your work now. What led you to change direction? Is there any carryover in terms of skill?
Yeah, I worked for the state of California, limiting the spread of pest insects. We collected data, so like kind of being a part of that was related. But I mean, for the most part, it was the job of a regulator. So I'd go to farms and plant nurseries and grocery store, anywhere where there would be like a vector for a pest insect, and have them sign a set of rules and enforce those rules upon them. As the state, we didn't really have authority, so it was kind of, we could put pressure on the county to take away your license type of thing. And yeah, that's what I did for the state of California in between undergrad and grad school. I also worked for a financial advisor. Some more relevant skills, I guess, there. Working with Excel and kind of learning how certain markets work. So.
And then they had asked what had led you to change direction.
Oh yeah,
so I know we kind of talked about that earlier, but go ahead.
So yeah, I was in the Department of Food and Agriculture of the state of California, and I kind of reached a point where to move forward within my agency would have required me to have a science degree, which I did not have. I had a political science degree. And so if I was going to like make a lateral move and kind of make a career change and get out of that, I wanted to build, like, just take an opportunity to build some skills that I didn't have that I thought would be useful for kind of where I wanted to see myself or saw myself wanting to go. So I went to kind of shop around for programs. I knew I was interested in public policy. I saw that UChicago had the CAT program, and they marketed teaching a lot of like Python skills and SQL and just very useful data work skills to people who didn't really have that background but had maybe an economic background or a policy background. And that was a good fit, so I came here.
Okay. And then our next question, looking back at your time at Harris, is there anything you would do differently? Could be anything. Classes you would or wouldn't take, professional relationships you would or wouldn't invest time in, internships you would or wouldn't have taken, etc.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. This is like so like specific to me, but my office does use like the low level language we use is C, and like Michael Spurtis, who's like he's on the C++ board. He's like one of the founding members of this language that I use at my job, teaches the class at UChicago. And I wish I had taken that class because I could have worked into some software engineer roles at this office, and probably would be a quicker path to more pay than trading. So for me, so definitely technical skills are, there's some really cool opportunities to like learn some really challenging topics at UChicago, and you should get into those classes if you can.
Okay. I'm going to ask a silly question though. Is there a capstone or overall thesis project that you work on at Harris?
Oh no.
Oh, there's not. Okay. Because if so, I was going to ask you what it was. All right. Any other questions from the audience? Again, you can submit it in the Q&A box if you're feeling shy tonight, or you can raise your hand. Oh yeah, we got another one. All right, so next question. What advice would you give for someone considering an MPP or an MS-CAP? How do you pronounce that? Do you just say that as the MSCAPP?
Just CAP, MS CAP.
Just CAP,
Yeah.
MS CAP, okay. With more of a science background and not a finance econ background. Sorry, I'll just reread that entire thing. What advice would you give for someone considering an MPP or an MS CAP with more of a science background and not a finance econ background?
Yeah, so like science is there's definitely scientists working at LS Power, and I suppose I don't really know what your science background is, but if it were like electrical engineering, it would you could work anywhere in this industry, especially if you got some kind of policy framework to like understand what's going on and what's driving these projects, or stopping and starting them sometimes. I guess advice for people with a science background would be, I guess I want to ask, like, what advice, like career advice, do you think?
Whoever anonymously asked this question, if you would like any clarification, you can submit it. I think I'm interpreting, oh, there we go. Or this is another question, but I was interpreting the first question as considering the program, an MPP versus MSCAP.
Yeah, so the MSCAP, I would say definitely just getting your ass kicked and like learning Python that first year. It doesn't come off your resume, and it's good. So that it's a kind of, there's a lot of people in like Vita's position who aren't as comfortable coding, who can't really move into her part of the world, I guess. So I would recommend like the CAP program, as far as if you don't know what you want to do at the other end, or if it is scientific, you can, do a lot of research more quickly, I suppose, with better data skills. So not that like the MPPs do learn good data skills, and it tends to be more focused in like a research setting, I feel. So than just like production code type writing a bit of code that's going to get used 1,000 times in a year. But they're both, go based on your interests. But if you're not sure exactly what you want to do, just I think CAP has more like the raw things that will get you in the door places.
Okay, we have another CAP question. So I'm a CAP student interested in energy as well. I was wondering what made you narrow down your focus within the energy sector, for example, RTOs. And what other niches in the energy sector do you see data skills fitting in? Was it mostly general programming skills that were applicable to your job, or did you have specific experience doing energy modeling?
Yeah, so I got interested in RTOs. I guess a little about myself. I'm from California, and I kind of grew up during like the whole Enron thing. And so just coming into like the energy econ class and having like a really good idea of like why that happened and how that happened. And it was a very interesting day of school for me, and kind of started me along a path. It's a broad world of energy. Like you could, I mean, even in energy finance, you could write an algorithm that tries to estimate the price of oil or the price of natural gas, and make that your whole career. So you could do environmental research. A lot of what's going on at Epic is a great example of what you can do. So what was the last part of that question?
So the first part was what made you narrow down your focus with an energy sector? And then the second part, was it mostly general programming skills that were applicable to your job? Or did you have specific experience doing energy modeling?
No, it was mostly general programming experience. I got a very bad grade on a data viz project that actually had something to do with all this, but it was looking at it now, it would have been so helpful to know, to have taken like energy econ before that or something. So not really, I didn't have any like, there's nothing on my GitHub that they just wanted to use or anything like that. It was more, I had a general set of programming skills and problem solving skills around certain things. And just based on their background, them both being quants, is that they're often like questioning what's coming out of like this county or that state's decision-making process. And so like having like a broad background and having some policy background definitely was helpful.
Great. All right. Any other questions from you guys? Otherwise, we could talk about a couple other things, and then we can wrap up shortly. Let's see, what else haven't we talked about yet? Already talked about corporate culture. Is there like any like busy season versus more of a slower season? Are you busy all the time? How does that look over the year?
Yeah, so the world of public power, like definitely there is a busy season or 2 busy seasons and 2 slow seasons with summer and winter. Things really heat up. And so the shoulders are spring and fall. And on the marketing side of things, that's when we try and get all the auctions done, or the RTO tries to get a lot of this done. So spring and fall are busy seasons, and summer, like for me, but like for the grid, it's the opposite. It would be spring and fall are the shoulders, and the 2 peaks are winter and summer.
And then, sorry, mind blank. Do you have any advice for resources or like Twitter handles to follow for like people who are interested in this type of stuff, or like journals to read or magazines to subscribe to, anything like that?
Yeah, I would say like if you're interested in like public power markets, California ISO publishes a lot of really interesting papers. They're doing research, and they also have like some pretty like well thought out slideshows. ISO New England does as well, just kind of explaining how certain markets work and how their market specifically works. PJM can be like a little simplistic, especially because it's a giant network and they don't do things like how they explain they do. But yeah, definitely these organizations, if you want to participate in these markets or work for one of these organizations, how they deal with issues like decarbonization and reliability are going to impact a lot of people and cost or save a lot of money. And so I think it's like a worthwhile thing to be a part of from a public good standpoint. So
Awesome. And then if anyone is interested in following up with you, are you okay with anyone emailing you with questions or just general help or more information about LS Power? Are you good with connecting with anyone if they're interested?
Oh yeah, I'm totally good to connect with anyone if you are interested. You guys can have my email. We are going to have an internship opening up soon. So I will, I guess, send Marguerite.
Yep. Definitely send me that, and I can include that in our student newsletter. We'll post that on our job board, and all you people here are the first to know about that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's feel free to ask me any questions and about the internship or just about careers in general.
Is that a summer position?
It is yes, it's a paid summer position. You would have to come to Baltimore.
Okay, good to know. But paid internship, that's great. Does anyone have any more questions? Otherwise, we're going to start wrapping up. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much for attending tonight. And thank you, Dave, for being here and for chatting with us. This was really great. Again, if you have any further questions for me or Dave, you can email me. I can get you in contact with Dave and then go from there. And then I will post the internship on our website and also include that in our student newsletter that goes out on Thursdays. Otherwise, we have 2 more of these career series events for the rest of the academic year. We have our next one on April 29th. We'll have Yuki Song, who's a PhD candidate at Harris. So that will be a little bit different than our last couple presenters. And then we have one more in May. So you can check out the full schedule on our website. And that's all I got for tonight. You guys got a couple extra minutes back to your evening. And thank you again so much.